following is a live presentation of North Beach Television.
I would like to do thank yous first and acknowledgments. And I want to say that this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. For North Beach TV or anyone that's affiliated with this forum is for the voters and the community members to have a face with a name and to be able to hear their answer, the candidate answers. The thank yous go to North Beach TV, Daryl Prowse, Scott Johnston, and John Reed, all with North Beach TV. Thank you very much. We have Rick Beveridge, our wonderful sound man. Without him, you would not be able to hear me. We want to thank Janet, who is doing a wonderful job with timekeeping. She keeps us on schedule. And our timekeepers do not get enough recognition, so thank you. Also, we want to thank the Lions Club for this facility, Gary Johnson, Jeff Moyer, and Jane Shattuck, Nancy Milliman, Anita, can't do this without you. Jan Hyatt, thank you again. Everybody has pitched together to work to get the room set up and have this be available to us. And again, we are not endorsing a candidate. We are not collecting funds for candidate or for party. This is a forum for the community. And with that, I will tell you that we have questions in this fishing creel that my husband doesn't use because he hasn't caught a fish for a while. And that we will go with a coin toss. The coin toss has the first person that calls it. They will start with their introduction. It's 5 minutes for their introduction. Then the second candidate will do an introduction. Then after that, we'll go through picking cards from the creel. And both candidates will answer the question. And they will have 3 minutes to answer. Our timekeeper will let the candidates know at 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and at 0, you're done. So, and then we encourage you, once this is over, we encourage you to meet with your candidates, and any questions that we weren't able to ask during this forum, that's your opportunity to talk to them. And I'll go and I will start. So, we'll do the coin toss. Let's see if I can do it. Okay. Heads, tails, what?
Heads.
It's heads.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you.
Timekeeper.
Hello, everybody. So I have a question before I start. How many in the audience do not know who I am? Thank you. So most of you do. So what I thought I would do was start out and tell you something about me that you don't know. When I was 18 and graduated from high school, I was living in Panama in Central America. My parents had moved there. And I finished high school and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do next. I was a swimmer, and I used to go to the Hilton Hotel swimming pool every day with my friend, and we swam laps, and we would compete. And one day, a tragedy happened. We were the only two in the swimming pool. We both came to the end of the pool. My friend was right next to me. She put her foot on the light, and she was electrocuted, and she died. I didn't. I felt the shock wave. I was pulled out as she was. And that changed my whole life. And I went for a very long time wondering why I hadn't died. You've all been there, I'm sure. Something's happened to someone and you question, why am I still here? Why was it her and why wasn't it me? And it took me a very long time to get over it. I will tell you that it took almost 20 years before I would go back into a swimming pool, because I obviously was terrified. But what I realized, and it took me a little while, but what I realized was that I had work to do, There was a reason why I was still here. And that's what's motivated me for the rest of my life. And there have been a number of different crises that have come up through my life, and I've always felt that success was dealing with that crisis and coming out of that one and knowing that you learned something from it and moving on. And perhaps there would be a next one, and if there was, I would learn to negotiate that as well. And through all of that, I began to feel that perhaps my mission in life was to help others get through the crisis. And so I became an advocate for people, and that is what I've done for most of my life in various different forms. Many of you know me for the work that I do with my nonprofit here in Ocean Shores, North Beach Project Connect. Some of you know me that I spent 4 years on the city council. But regardless of what seat I've held or what hat I have worn, it has always been to advocate for the people. I'd like to go back to the council. I enjoyed my 4 years of being a public servant. I do have a servant's heart. And I'm looking forward to winning this election, being back on the council and serving you once again in that capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I thanked everybody, but I forgot one person. And Clayton Frankie is here from the Daily World. And Clayton, I never say anything about you. I don't know if you're supposed to be incognito or if you... The fact that the guy comes from Hoquiam to do this, I guess we should acknowledge him. Thank you. Thank you. It's your turn.
Good evening, and I just want to say big thanks to everyone that's putting on this event tonight, so all of you have a chance to hear from both candidates that are running for seat 3. I am just so excited to be here, and I want to say thank you to my family. I have a wonderful brother and sister and mother that support me. My husband is here of 28 years. He has 2 great children and 5 grandchildren, and I have 2 grown children and also just 1 grandchild so far. But my oldest child is living in Kansas, and that's where I'm from. In fact, I spent the first 27 years of my life in Kansas, and when you grow up in a small farming community, you really get instilled with a lot of common core values. And a value that I had growing up and still have is the value of hard work. It's really important to work hard and work hard for others. I grew up to be very independent, not just an independent thinker, but the importance of being independent in your life, but also caring for other people not as fortunate as yourself. After I lived in Kansas for 27 years, this country girl moved to Seattle. What a culture shock for me. So I was in Seattle living and working for over 20 years and just so glad I had that opportunity, because that experience of living in a diverse urban community really opened my heart and my mind to the importance of working with people different than yourself. And through that, I really value and respect other cultures, whether it's people that are different from me racially, or maybe religious differences, or maybe sexual identity or gender expression, that it's important to value everybody. And that really went into my work in public education. I just started my 32nd year in public education. I have a bachelor's degree in elementary education, a master's in school counseling, and then a certificate in administrative leadership. And the bulk of my 32 years were spent in some form of school administration. And as an administrator, I gained those skills of how to work with different people and really take a group of people and be able to problem solve in a positive way. And also how to work with people to create a positive culture and sustain a positive culture. While I was living in Seattle, we often came out here to Ocean Shores when my kids were little and then as they grew. And we just loved Ocean Shores. We came back again and again and just knew that we wanted to have retirement and vacation property here. So we purchased property in 2010 and moved here full time in 2013. And when you get here, you find out really fast that the expectation is it's not just okay just to hang out in Ocean Shores, that you really have to work and volunteer and be a part of the community. So despite working full-time in Aberdeen as a principal, I got involved. I've been on the Wolfathon board, our Dreamscape condominium board, served on the library board, and then in, I think it was 2016, was appointed to the Ocean Shores City Council. Then I had to run to retain my seat and served out the remainder of my city council job. I chose not to run again, I think it was 2019, because my job changed. I went from a school with 500 to a school of 800. And so I wanted to focus on that, so did not run again in 2019. But now my job has changed again. I have a great school, but with less evening activities, and I'm ready to get back to the community here, give back, and work some more. And so I believe that with my values of hard work and caring for others, my problem-solving skills, and that ability to create a positive culture make me the best choice for Seat 3.
Thank you. So you'll hear me say thank you at the end of each answer, and that probably doesn't need to be a signal that you need to clap. How about if we keep the applause till the end now? Thank you.
That looks like a good one.
Some of these questions you've heard before, some of them you have not. But I think it's important that we hear the answers to the questions from both candidates. The Oyhut ditch, the current city plan is to clean it up and then maintain it every 2 years. But the cost for the work is being done now to clean the ditch comes from one-time federal grant or ARPA money. This revenue source is not available once the current grant is spent. And how will you pay for this maintenance?
I go first, Gina?
Yes.
Thank you. So, I'm not familiar with whether or not there are additional grants, but one would assume that the city would be going out and looking for additional funding in that sense, because that's what they normally do. If this is something that we can do through our own public works and through maintenance, I hope that that's something that we would consider doing. All of the issues with maintenance, and we have had many during the years, were the fact that we didn't have any funds for maintenance for many different things. We turned the corner on that when both Lisa and I were on council and started putting money away. We had the Transportation Benefit District that money comes in to help with the roads. So I do believe that the work that we started in the beginning has now moved us forward, that we are well aware of these issues and the fact that we have to fund the maintenance of these projects when we take them on. So I'm optimistic that through the help of the finance director, because that's who we rely on as council members, it's not up to us to determine individually where does the money come from. We're looking to the people who advise us for that. Our finance director has been with us for a long time. So my hope is that these will be things that are already in motion in terms of that maintenance funding on a regular basis, and that's not something that we look at in 2 years and go, whoops, we forgot to do something in the meantime. We have a history of doing that, and I don't think that that is the way to go. So I'm optimistic through all of these forums and all of the answers that people have given that everyone is well aware of the need for the maintenance on any project. I think we look good in the future in that case.
I think you're going to, I think you're going to find this evening that Susan and I agree on many, many, many things. So I agree with all the things that Susan said. The Oyhut ditch is a super important part of our stormwater system, not just to having it cleaned out so to prevent the flooding in that area, but also we want more water flowing into our fresh waterways. And I believe there is the need and the desire through the budgeting process to make sure the money is in our budget to continue to keep that clean. It's really hard to get it all cleaned out now, but once they do that work, the maintenance of it will be less costly.
Thank you. It is your turn. And you notice nothing clamps on their hand when they put their hand in the creel.
What she's saying is there's no fish in there, right?
No fish and no trap. The South Fire Station renovation. Renovating the South Fire Station was budgeted in 2021-2022 biennium budget to cost $420,000, equally split between the fire department budget and the emergency care budget. The most recent estimate is nearly double the amount. Is the South Fire Station a priority for you? And if so, how will it be paid for?
So I believe the South Fire Station is a priority, and not just because I live down on the south end, but I know all of us are aware of the recent fire and how important it is to have quicker response down on the south end. I believe through our next budgeting cycle with our city council, the focus will be on that. We need to find a way to fund the station and get it up and running. It's important, super important.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I was pleased when this came up the last time to hear from Frank Elduin, who was sitting on the city council, when he brought forward an alternative to building or remodeling the structure to bring in a manufactured unit, a modular unit of some kind. And I thought that was really a good movement forward. Unfortunately, it didn't get much traction. There were many reasons for that, but I still think that modular units are good. In fact, as I drove here tonight, I noticed the little modular bathroom that's been put into Chinook Park. Thank you, Kristen Hartman, for that bathroom and the park. But I do think that there are alternatives. One of the things we do have to remember, though, with the South Fire Station, whatever we put in, it has to meet the requirements of the fire department. They are the ones that are going to be operating out of it, and I do hope that the conversations that we have include them from the very beginning. I must say that in all the conversations I've had during this campaign, I've not heard anybody say that we should not improve the South Fire Station. It is an important thing to do, and I think we should move ahead with it. Again, we will be advised by our finance director, and we will see what kind of money is there. I don't think it's something that we would go out for a municipal bond. I'm not seeing that. I know a number of people have questioned that. They were concerned because we did that with the police station. I don't think that that's in the future. I can't swear to that, but I'm hoping that it's not. That's what I'm hearing from people, that they don't want to go that extravagant. Thank you. See, have you noticed? She doesn't look, but I do, because I need to see what I'm getting out. But I can't see the questions when I do it. So I just wanted you to know that.
I could hold it over your
You
head.
could.
Should the city designate further funds to improve and maintain our fresh waterways? How would you propose to fund it if you said yes?
As we've beaten this one probably to death in all of these campaign forums, again, I don't believe there's anybody who said, either candidates or citizens, that we shouldn't do something. But one of the biggest issues that I've had with the fresh waterways is the division that we have from those who navigate, who boat, and those who fish. And there's been such a controversy between both sides. If we continue to spray, those who fish say that we are poisoning the fish and they don't get to do anything about it. If we don't spray, the boaters are not able to navigate through some of our smaller channels. That has to be come to a resolution for both of those things to begin with. There have been a number of suggestions. I believe it was Bob Peterson who suggested a lake management district. That's been floated around before. I would say that half the people think that's a great idea and the other half do not. The problem with it is some people who don't live on the fresh waterways don't want to put money out to make the fresh waterways any better than what they are. So whatever it is that we decide to do, maybe we could have a Friends of the Fresh Waterways. We have a Friends of the Library, people who will willingly donate to a fund to help the waterways. But whatever it is that we do, we need to have the conversations about what it is exactly that we want it to actually do and bring all the sides together, the fishermen and the boaters, to make sure that what decisions we make are going to suffice for both groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Should the city designate further funds to improve and maintain our fresh waterways? How would you propose to fund this if you said yes?
So I think, like most candidates, I agree that we need to take care of the fresh waterways. It's a really valuable asset to our community, and it helps all of us, not just the people that live on the fresh waterways. I haven't heard of a controversy between fishermen and boaters. I'm on the boat. I'm on the water quite a bit, either boating or paddle boarding, and my children fish quite a bit on the fresh waterways, and I haven't heard that. I think that we're going to first, we did the weed study, but the next piece is there actually has to be a whole comprehensive plan for how to clean up and maintain it. We need to start with what the plan is and what the cost is, and then start looking at how we're going to take care of it. I'm super excited. I think many candidates talked about belonging now to the Conservation District, and I think that will be a big piece of how to fund how much money it's going to take to clean up and maintain our waterways. They're not natural. And we've talked about that there. When it started as a swamp, and it's going to take a lot of work to maintain them as the way they are now.
Thank you.
I'm going to close my eyes. Every day I draw winners for like daily behavior winners. So I always close my eyes when I draw kid winners. Although one time someone put a fake spider in the box I draw from. So. It's a lot of guts stick in there.
A little excitement. When you were council members, how did you arrange time for your constituents?
So when I was on council, I work full-time, so most of the time that I spent with constituents was either through email or phone calls, and then we started city chats, which were just super, super amazing, and I hope that they continue with those again. And that's where they put 3 city council members together and have open conversations with their constituents. So I'm hoping that continues too. If I'm elected to council, I think what I would like to do, I know that there's lots of feedback from council members, and I think Susan was one of them when she was on council that had regular weekly meetings. I attended, I think, Gordon Broadbent's before and John Lynn's. I went to Holly's when she had those, and people were super appreciative of those. So I would be looking at my calendar and finding a time to also do that, probably on the weekends, which would work. Our growing community here has a lot of people that do work during the day, so I think having a time to meet with constituents on the weekends would be good.
Thank you. And when you were a council member, how did you arrange for your arrange time for your constituents?
Thank you. I was fortunate in the fact that before I was elected to council, I had started a group called Community Voices, and we met weekly. That was over at the North Beach Senior Center. And even today, I can't tell you whether people actually came to see me and have a discussion or if they came because there was a good meal afterwards. Either way, a lot of people came to those meetings. And they were good because a lot of questions that constituents ask, as a council member, you can't answer them. And a lot of them were pertaining to you need to have experts. And so I would bring in guest speakers so that we could get our questions answered. I continued to do that throughout my council experience for those 4 years, and when I lost my seat, I continued for a while doing that too. We did go online during COVID, which was not very satisfactory, and again, I think it was because people couldn't get a meal when they were finished with it. But we have picked up and we are doing it again, and I'm enjoying the conversations that we're having with people. I do think it's important that council members are available for their constituents. Email, social media certainly is an issue. Email, sometimes it's difficult to get the answers correctly. Interpretation is always an issue. But when you're in a room, as we were today, earlier today I had Community Voices, and the conversation is less formal, and we get a lot done because there's a give and take between the conversation, and people are on both sides of the issue, and we can work towards solutions and compromise. The city council, I think it was called Conversation with Council, is still a little formal, and sometimes people are not as eager and willing to actually have that conversation when it's in a formal setting. So though I like them, I will obviously continue with my Community Voices, and I hope that the other council members will do the same. And they're always welcome to come to my meeting and meet the constituents there. We used to do that when I was on council. Thank you. Okay, I'm not going to look this time, see what
Yeah, I
happens.
was just going to say, I'm tipping it.
There we are, thank you. I must say, I've never done this before. I've never put my hand into that kind of basket to pull out a question, so this is quite different.
And it's not slimy either.
I'd certainly tell them if it was.
Do you engage with the city administration and state legislators to advocate for citizens?
Say it again.
Do you engage with the city administration and state legislators to advocate for citizens?
As a citizen, I do, and on council, of course, we would do the same. We used to have, and I'm not sure that it's still there, I don't believe it is, we used to have a legislative agenda where the council and the mayor put together the items that were of importance to the state legislature, and then we asked our constituents as well to lobby the representatives for those issues. I've worked very hard, ever since I've been here in Ocean Shores 9 years, to get the word out about Ocean Shores. When we were looking into healthcare, one of my friends, Randy Peck, and I met with Senator Patty Murray. We made arrangements to go to Tacoma and meet with her. I've invited our state representatives here for several legislative update town halls. I wanted citizens to have an opportunity to meet their representatives. We've had them come. I handled campaign forums such as this when we had our state representatives running for election. It's incredibly important. And the one thing that I'm doing now is I am a member of the Washington State Council on Aging. And my good news this week is that I was just appointed as the co-chair to the legislative committee for the State Council on Aging. So I now have a direct line to the state legislature, and we do advise the governor. It is important. We need to be heard. We need to, as we often hear, have a seat at the table. And from that perspective, we have a seat at that table. So this is good for Ocean Shores. Thanks.
Do you engage with the city administration and state legislators to advocate for citizens?
I think that our council will have a legislative agenda, and typically there is a city council member that's designated as the legislative liaison that does that piece. And it's important that if we are engaging individually as an individual citizen with the legislators that we make it clear that we're engaging as a citizen and not as a city council person, because it's really important that the city's vision and mission is one voice and one thought. So that's what I would advocate for, is to make sure that we continue with the city council legislative agenda with a designated liaison. When it comes to engaging with the city, I think it's really important when we have citizens approach us with things, or whether it's a citizen or whether it's a visitor or someone that even works in our town, when they approach us with issues and concerns, that the person that we go to is the mayor, that information goes to the mayor, and then from the mayor it goes out to the staff. And when city council members start engaging directly with the city staff, then that can create where no one did that person say something, did that person say something? It can create confusion in the lines of communication. So it's important to advocate for people we represent, but there's a way to advocate for them, and it's through to the mayor and then to the city staff.
Thank you.
There we go. I want a good one. I'm going to dig right down. I just want you to know, when I stick my hand in there, there's like thousands of questions.
So
you're in for a long night.
We're going to be here until midnight if we have to answer them all. Do we have to answer them all?
I'm not telling.
I'm going to need a cup of coffee if we're answering all of this.
How do you justify and prioritize? Example, if interest rates are climbing, we have the city water issues for some constituents, the backflow regulators that will impact business and homeowners, hiring more employees, the fresh waterways issues that will cost millions, the new police department, and you talk of sidewalks. How is this going to be paid for? I'm already broke.
I love that question. It was asked at some of the other forums as well. I've had a lot of budgeting experience even before I was on the city council, just serving as an administrator in an extremely large district when we went through different budgeting cycles and budgeting crises in school districts. We were all part of a budgeting committee where we would have to make tough choices about budget cuts that impacted kids and staff. So I had that experience, and I do, as a school administrator, also I'm responsible for my own school budget and also managing some large state and federal grants that I use for my school and also for the Grace Harbor Detention Center School is also grant funded, where I'm the principal. The budgeting process is actually a group decision. And so and I know a lot of people here I see have been very involved in the city budget over the years. It's a month-long process where we look at all the projection for the money coming in, what we want to spend money on, is there any extra money, and as a group, as a city council group, we set priorities and make decisions around what to spend our money on. So it's not just up to me as an individual, it's a group decision. And the other piece I just want to add is that month-long process, when I mentioned, I've seen many of you there for that, is that there is citizen input along the way for projects or what our people in our town want to spend money on or not spend money on as well.
Thank you. How do you justify and prioritize? Example, interest rates are climbing. We have the city water issues for some constituents, the backflow regulators that will impact business and homeowners, hiring more employees, the fresh waterway issues that will cost millions, the new police department, and you talk of sidewalks. How is this all to be paid for? I'm already broke.
Yes, indeed. We're already broke if we think about all of those things. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to what it always does. Yes, we have finance director. Yes, we have a budget process. Yes, some people come and they do speak to us during the budget process. But for the most part, people are intimidated to come into a formal setting to discuss the budget. And the reason for that is that the majority of the people really don't understand the process. They don't feel comfortable even asking a question because they might be seen as being foolish, perhaps, because they don't understand it. We need to reach out. We need to do something better than we've done before. When I was on the council, and actually prior to, I can remember Holly Plackett was there before and she was always asking for more study sessions, more informal meetings where the citizens could come in and they could voice their concerns or they could ask their questions. And this has come up before, and there have been people arguing one way or another about town halls. A town hall run correctly would be a perfect way to go before we start into the budget process, where everyone in a room like this would be able to come together. They would hear the different things that the city is considering, what the staff wants. Right now, we just did the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting. The convention center takes a great deal of our money, but not a lot of people understand that, so they don't see why there isn't enough money left for the events that we want to host. We would like to have a situation where all citizens feel comfortable to come in, discuss budget priorities with us, so that the council has a way to start, because we would have already heard from you. We may think that backflow devices are the thing that are troubling you the most, and then you'll come in and we'll find that it's something completely different, that you're all willing to pay for that. We won't know unless we talk to you. So I'd like to see our budget process open up and be a little less formal in the beginning. We get to hear from the staff what they want. We need a special process where we get to hear from you. So maybe we're all here, the council is here, and you're there, and you're telling us what is it that you want. At the end of that session, how many people feel this is a priority? How many people feel this is a priority? This is not a priority for a council member. The council member's priority is to do the right thing for you, because it's your money that we're spending, and we need to hear from you, and we need to make it so that it's more comfortable for you to come forward and be heard by us.
Thank you.
And it squeaks. Can you hear that squeaking?
It's for Halloween.
Only in Ocean Shores, right?
The complaint is lockstep. How important to you to stand against the council and mayor for your convictions?
I'd like you to read the question again, because I'm not sure that I got the first part.
I said the complaint is lockstep.
Okay.
How important to you to stand against the council and mayor for your convictions?
The council, each council member is duly elected by the people, as is the mayor. And the council is the checks and balances. We, as individual elected council members, need to maintain that certain independence. We have to be able to work with each other. At the end of the day, there is generally a compromise, something that I've done most of my life. I mentioned this earlier today, that one of the things that makes me feel good is if you come in and you're both on different sides of the question, and you're able to work out a compromise where both sides believe that they won something. Not that they gave something up, but that they actually won. With us all being duly elected, we come from different perspectives, we have different thoughts, and we have 7 of us. That's pretty cool, to have that many people from different backgrounds with different thoughts and ideas meeting with different constituents to be able to come forward. If we are all running together as a block, as some people have done in the past and apparently are doing now, there's that concern from constituents that they're just all going to vote the same way. And we don't need that, not in a small town. Everyone needs to run as an independent thinker, as an independent elected person, yes, to work with each other, but not to be working on some sort of agenda prior to being elected. And sometimes that is a worry from the constituents, that they see that and that maybe they wouldn't be heard because the group has already made up their minds what it is that they're interested in and what they plan to see take place on a council once they're elected.
Thank you. The complaint is lockstep. How important to you to stand against the council and mayor for your convictions?
So I have not heard the complaint lockstep, and it's actually a new term for me. When I mentioned at the beginning, I talked about independent thinking. I was raised to be independent, very independent, and to be an independent thinker. And those of you that know the story about why I ended up leaving a job in the Federal Way School District and coming here and working in Aberdeen is because I was brave enough and the only one that stood up and spoke out about something that was happening in our school district and ended up looking for a new job. So I think it's important to stand up for what you believe in, and when you see things going on that shouldn't happen, then that's what you do, and I have done that before. That's the way I was raised. I have done that in my job in the Federal Way School District, and I do that every day in my job when I advocate for kids and for staff. The concern that I heard mentioned from my colleague about a block of people running, everybody here votes independently. We get our ballot in the mail, and we will sit and individually decide, race by race, who we're going to choose. In seat 3, seat 2, we will individually decide. Because I have decided that I support myself, please vote for me, and 4 other candidates, I don't think represents a block. It represents people that I believe are more experienced, people who have lived here longer, people who want to problem solve but in a positive and respectful way, and people who have had more experience working with our city government maybe than others. And that was individually, person by person, that I decided that. And I think that currently our city is in a great shape. It's not perfect, it has a long ways to go, and I believe that you will see whoever's elected to council making decisions independently for themselves for what's best for our city.
Thank you.
Here we go. That last one's a spicy question, so I wonder if I'll get another spicy one.
Why can't I camp on my lot more than 90 days? How do you feel about extending that time limit? I feel persecuted.
I feel persecuted. I have friends with campers, and they can only camp in my driveway for 30 days. How about that? So this has been a hot topic over the last forums that I've attended. Camping has changed, has changed over the years. I think we started as a city with 30 days and then 60 and now 90. I think it is time to look at it again. I think it's important to get feedback from everyone, not just the people that live here full-time, but people who own property or maybe are part-time. Get that input from our community and make a decision based on input on how camping and what people camp in has changed. I am not opposed to extending the camping limit to extending the number of days, but it is a group decision. It takes the city council to decide that, and I think as part of that decision-making process, we're also going to have to consider those unforeseen circumstances or other things that might happen. If we increase camping, what other issues might increase, and make sure that we have a plan for that as well.
Thank you.
You don't need to read it again. I just go off on what Lisa just finished saying. When this came up when we were on council, my perspective was that we shouldn't be discussing anything about making any changes unless we could show the people who live next door to a camping lot that if they had a problem with a generator running all night long, partying outside and keeping them up all night because they had to go to work in the morning, that we needed to have code enforcement coverage or whatever else we could do through the police department. And if we had that, then we would have an opportunity to be able to make sure that everybody was going to be able to live with the decisions. So eventually we did hire a second code enforcer, and that, I think, was making quite a difference. Unfortunately, COVID came, he was laid off, and he did not come back. And so we were back in the same position we were. I do believe that people who own their property should have certain rights to be able to use it. I've always felt that. When I was first nominated and sat on a planning commission years ago in my first life, it was an abrupt awakening because I'd been a citizen activist, and when I was appointed, I realized that developers had rights as well. They owned these properties, and somehow we were going to have to come to a compromise. When I was on the planning commission here, this came up. And we discussed it at length, and I remember one of the people on the Planning Commission was adamant against it, but the decision we made was to leave it alone because there was a feeling that as we continued to grow and the lots were built out, that fewer and fewer people would want to actually camp essentially in somebody's driveway because you'd have houses on each side and in the back and so on. But that hasn't happened. And I think Lisa was right in that. We see something different. We have people coming to these lots that have motorhomes that are millions of dollars in value, 10 times what my house is. And I think there's a way to be able to work this out. They have to, I believe, have the lots be developed. We can't have that length of time on an undeveloped lot. So they would have to have water, sewer, and power. That way there would be additional taxes that would be collected from the county, and we could move forward in that. And we need to talk to everyone so that the people who are worried about generators or campfires all day, all night, that they have the opportunity to know that if they have something that's troubling them, they can go and find out that somebody will come and take care of it. And I believe that that can be worked out. So I'd like to see that happen, that we have that discussion, so that at least the people who come and spend time here on their lots can be here from one holiday to the next holiday. Right now they cannot unless they take their camper, their trailer, and then bring it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Your turn.
That one.
How do you feel about the number of Airbnbs in Ocean Shores, which it appears to be over 300 units? Do you know, do they pay into the LTAC fund, and should they? And is that something you believe should be monitored and verified with LTAC contributors and public?
So from what I know of overnight rentals, they are allowed in the commercial districts. They're not allowed in the residential districts. So when it came up a long time ago, there was a discussion about whether we should allow overnight rentals in a residential area. There was quite a fuss that was brought up, and the fuss was not just the residents who didn't want the overnight rentals. It was from the commercial people whose properties had to be at a higher level. They had to have sprinklers. There were a number of different things they were required to have in a commercial setting that the residential did not have. And so they were absolutely against the idea of allowing residential Airbnb. I know that they do pay their taxes into the lodging tax that we collect, and I think that's absolutely as it should be. There are, I know, still some that are not legal because they're not in the right district, and I do know that our code enforcement does work on that, or at least they did when I last asked, that they actually check the listings and they go out and they check to see if they are a legal Airbnb. So it's not something that I'm concerned too much about, because usually if there's one that is illegal, somebody is going to be calling up and saying, I've got an illegal Airbnb next to me, and I need you to do something about it. And we have, from what I understand, been pretty good and pretty positive about making sure that that's not happening. So again, Airbnb in a commercial district, it's what we allow, and they do pay into the lodging tax. I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that everybody who does the rentals pays into that tax. Thank you.
How do you feel, Dov?
Oh, you don't need to, that's all
Okay.
right. So,
I was practicing.
I know you were doing great. Airbnb question, and I think you'll find a lot of things that Susan and I agree on tonight. So I agree with everything that Susan said. We have specifically zoned areas that allow overnight rentals, and they do pay into the LTAC, which is awesome. And there's a lot of undeveloped places there still, where if someone wanted to build and invest in an Airbnb, they could do that. I think if we are talking about expanding the areas of Airbnbs, that would be quite the discussion. And I think we'd have to get lots of community input on that. I know that my neighbor, I shared, I think, with Michael earlier this evening, that I have a neighbor that's part-time. She lives, I think, on Mercer Island, and then is just a part-time person, and she really wants all the codes and the zoning to change so she can Airbnb her house right next to mine. And I'm like, I always say, what a great idea. And then I go tell Doug, oh my gosh, Laura wants to do overnight rentals. So I think it would be a huge discussion, because most of us that live here full-time are a little leery of having overnight rentals right next to us. But they do pay into LTAC, it's important. And people do call code enforcement when they think that there's an illegal Airbnb too.
Thank you.
I hope Laura wasn't listening, because I talked about her.
Maybe we could do two.
I was going to call her.
You can call it. No, she doesn't. She's not home. She's not here right now, so I don't think she's watching live.
Water concerns. Some citizens have concerns regarding the city's water quality. A study session was recently held, and several action items were identified. In your opinion, are the identified action items sufficient, or are there additional actions to be justified? I just screwed that up. Let me start again. In your opinion, are the identified action items sufficient, or are additional actions justified? And how would you propose resolving citizen concerns from this point?
So I think the water quality issues is a great example of grassroots and what can happen when you have our citizens or people that live here have concerns and say something needs to change. Because there really was a group effort of saying this is a problem and it shouldn't be a problem, and our city recognized that problem and took a number of steps, including having they've done lots of testing. They've had someone from the state came in and tested. Our city now has a plan for hydrant flushing. They've identified areas in our city that need to be hydrant flushed more often. But unfortunately, that resolved some of the issues, but we still have people that are having water quality issues. And I think that we can't just say, well, someone from the state came and said everything's fine, so let's just move on. If there's just one person in our town that's having problems with their water, then I think we need to work on that and find a solution. Everyone deserves to have high quality drinking water, and it's important, and I don't think I know what the solution is, other than we're probably going to have to budget some money for that in the budgeting process to make sure that it's done.
It's okay, you don't need to do it again. When we first moved here to Ocean Shores 9 years ago, my husband was healthy, and it wasn't too much later that he was not doing well and was diagnosed that he had some sort of kidney infection. And one of the suggestions was that we not drink the water. So we stopped drinking the water. We actually have a distiller that we use. I use that for myself, for him, and for our pets as well. I think what we need to do, seeing as how this has come up, And I appreciate very much the lady who started this and did so much work, and I appreciate her immensely because she suffered some retaliation from the administration to the point where she was actually spoken very harshly to at a council meeting, which I think was wrong, because water is something you cannot live without. It affects every one of us. And what I think we need to do is provide updates, maybe as much as every month, as to the quality and how the water is doing, because things do change. And we live in a very odd place out here. Our aquifers are not very deep, and we also have a worry of saltwater incursion. That's something I started the conversation about when I was first on council. And we do have monitoring systems for it, but I think we need to do a little more than we've been doing. I think this is a wake-up call for all of us, and I'd like to see the administration really take it seriously and make sure that you know that they are taking it seriously and that you're going to get information that's given to you. You don't have to come and beg for it, that we would be putting it out there for you on a regular basis. And particularly that if you do have a problem, that you shouldn't worry that you're going to be treated badly if you bring up an issue like this, that you should be acknowledged for it. And if everything's okay, then you would get the information, and that's okay, you'd walk away. But every time there's a retaliation to someone who speaks at council, it makes other people afraid to come forward when they have a concern. And that is the last thing in the world that we want. We need to hear from all of you. We want to hear when things are good, we need to hear when they're not, and we need to take action on the things that we can take action on immediately, particularly as it regards to water. Thank you. I'm not looking this time. I'll find a really good one down at the bottom. You're right, there's a lot in here. There's a lot in there. Grief. Okay.
Thank you. We would like to see our city government resume the monthly chat with the council meetings. We thought that they were good opportunities to have the city hear from the taxpayers and are disappointed that they were discontinued. Would you support resuming these meetings and why?
The conversation with council when I was on the council was good. And the reason I liked it was because every time we did it, we were participating with other council members. It wasn't always the same three. It was always somebody different. And then you got to hear the interaction between those council members. What I would say is I would like it more, we had it set up like this. There would be three of us on a stage, and the citizens would come in and they would ask their questions. And sometimes they'd come in and say, well, I've got a question for Susan. Well, okay, I answered the question. Well, the other two are sitting there. They'd like to say something about it as well. So that was kind of a harsh thing. Much better if you come in and say, we've got three council members here. We'd like to hear from all three. Maybe we would all agree. As Lisa said, we agree on a number of different things. But we need to make it so that it's a little bit more give and take. It was still a little bit too formal. And the thing that council members have to remember, and I can say this lovingly to many of them that I've sat with and those that want to be there, you truly can't take this personally. When your constituents come in and they've got a question or a gotcha or they're angry about something, just deal with it. They really don't mean it just coming directly at you. It's the whole body. You're representing the council. They're coming forward and they're saying something to you. We need to remember that, and we need to engage when we do those conversations. We need to engage where essentially we're coming down off the high horse and we're just talking one-on-one. And if we do that, they're going to work, and I would love to see that come back. The city chat that the mayor brought in was not the same. That was something where people could come in, and he was there in the beginning. Then he started bringing in guest speakers who spoke at us. It wasn't a two-way conversation. So as long as it's two-way, as long as it's council members, it can only be three because four would be a quorum, and we can't do that. But I think it would be very valuable to bring back, and I've heard from many citizens that they would like to see that.
Thank you. What would you like to see our city government resume the monthly chat with the council meetings? We thought they were a good opportunity to have the city hear from the taxpayers and are disappointed they were discontinued. Would you support resuming these meetings and why?
I do support resuming those because I think it's yet another opportunity for people to come and talk to city council members, and that's in a more informal setting. I think it's important, Susan mentioned the importance of how our council members respond to people. As a public educator, I'm pretty used to dealing with anybody and all of their concerns. I spend all day from the minute I walk onto campus to the minute I leave getting lots and lots of feedback on how our school could be better and how I could do my job better, whether it's from the UPS driver that stops by, hands me a package, and then lets me know something that's going on in the parking lot. So I think that whole skill set of being open and listening to people and being communicative is a very important skill for a city council member. And when city council members can do that, it puts people at ease and it makes them more willing to share what's going on and makes them more willing to trust a decision that's made. It may not be a decision that they like, but people will be more trusting of that decision if they feel like they've been listened to and heard, and they feel like they've been treated respectfully. And it's super, super important for anyone that works for our city or someone that works in our city government to treat people respectfully. It's not a big ask, and it's super important.
Thank you.
There we go. It's only been an hour. Just letting you know. Okay.
There's at least 50 questions.
There's like
still
a
in this
ton of
basket.
questions in here. Right. I know they said it was going to be done at 9, but I think it's going to be 10. Okay.
The good part of this is the fact that you're both answering it in more than one word sentence. Because this is the opportunity for the people in the audience and the people watching this to see what your thoughts are. This is the only way that we have to do it. There have been in many instances when the Ocean Shores Municipal Code, or OSMC, has been vague or out of date, posing enforceability issues. Considering that certain sections of the OSMC have remained untouched for over 2 decades, and recognizing that the code constitutes a significant element of council duties, the question of modernizing and enhancing its legal coherence becomes essential. What do you propose to take care of that?
So this would be an example of something I've had experience with as an educator. I worked in a very large school district they're not called city codes, they're called, they're like policies and procedures that were very out of date. And we had to spend money, we had to hire a person to painstakingly go through all of the policies and procedures in order to bring them all up to the standard they're supposed to be. And I think that it is imperative that in the next budgeting process for our city council that they budget in a line item budget or hire somebody to take a look at that. The money will be well spent, and it's going to prevent a lot of problems in the future. And once you do that, you can't stop. You have to continue to update your codes and make sure that if you just don't update one, you have to look at where else is that referenced in all other different codes and update those as well. And I know it's a painstaking process, and it can be frustrating if you do go to city council meetings and watch how long it takes or how many readings it takes to just finally agree on just one change to the code. But it's important, it's an important process, and I think we're going to have to spend money to do it.
Thank you.
What did you say you wanted one-word answer? Yes. I was just thinking as Lisa was speaking that it's really too bad that we're not running for different seats. Of course, the municipal codes need to be aligned with the ordinances, and how that has gotten out of control, I have no idea. I do recall that when the council approved hiring a city administrator, it was one of the things that the mayor at the time said he was going to do, and that didn't happen. But there have been a number of issues that have come forward to the council recently where there has been a problem with interpretation. And I think it's been enough that we now realize that this is a critical issue and it does need to be addressed. Lisa's correct. Anything that we do along those lines is going to be painstaking and will require somebody to do the work. And if you have to hire somebody to do it, we're looking at costs for hiring another employee. Again, I think this would be something that would be discussed during our budgeting session coming up. And I haven't heard anyone, I haven't had anybody at my meetings or anyone I've spoken to who has suggested that this is of concern to them. It hasn't affected them personally. When it's an issue and it affects you personally, then you realize that there's a problem. It doesn't happen all the time, but it is a problem waiting to happen to each person individually in terms of that interpretation of the code. And our police department and our code enforcement can only do their job as well as they can if that interpretation is clear. And that's the reason why those things have to be connected together. So some of you may not know this, but the municipal code in Ocean Shores was taken right out of our covenants. People don't quite know what a covenant is, but it's attached to your grant deed. And these covenants were put on by district. And when the city incorporated, they took most of those and just created them and made them into the Ocean Shores Municipal Code. That's a long time ago. We are now in 2023, and it certainly is something that we need to be on top of, and we need to be making sure, again, that the people that we hire to enforce have the ability to do so. They have to be connected. Thank you. One less.
I'm beginning to think that you guys are complaining about this.
Oh, no, we want lots more questions. Ask the audience. It's them that has to sit through it. More questions?
Isn't
Are you
this
good?
educational?
Yeah, they
Yes.
seem to be okay.
What do you think the relationship between city council and city administration should look like?
Is that mine? What the relationship between the city administration and,
Between city council and the city administration should look like?
I'm going to make up an answer to that because I don't quite know what the person who asked the question means. Again, city council members are elected to do a job. Their job is not to run the staff, and city administration, my interpretation of city administration would be all of the people that work for the city. That's the mayor's responsibility, hires and fires everybody. Council should not, I don't believe, be involved in the workaday world for any of our staff. I also don't think that when council is making a decision that they should put on the table, well, we have to be careful what we decide to do here because it might mean more work for the staff. It's not up to the council to decide whether or not it's going to be more work for the staff. And I've always cringed when I've heard that. We, as council members, don't have a relationship per se. We do respect each other. We have our finance director who tells us and advises us on all things financial. But I don't consider that I would invite the finance director to come to my husband's birthday party. I mean, there's a division here, and I think there should be. Again, it's not up to council, and council cannot interfere with any employee. We don't get to go and say, go up and ask them what they're doing. And we can thank them, and I think that's very appropriate. We did that a lot on the council when I was there. As a citizen, I thank them. When I recognize who they are and what they're doing, one of the people who works the hardest for all of us now is Marshall Reed, and he is extraordinary with the work that he does. He came from our water treatment facility plant and came over to be a planner. And he's learned a tremendous amount, works with everyone the best that he can, and I'm incredibly impressed with the work he does. So when I see him, I do thank him. But it's certainly not up to a council member to be telling them how to do their job. So I think it's a little difficult to answer the question because I'm not really sure what you're talking about when you're saying relationship. Respectful, absolutely. Going out and partying with them, perhaps not. Thank you.
You're going to have to read it again.
Oh my gosh, I'm here for a reason. What do you think the relationship between city council and city administration should look like?
So again, I think I agree with Susan, again, something that we agree on, that city council, we do the budget and codes, budget and codes. So we're like the legislative piece of how our city functions. Then the city administration carry out the mission of our city and carry out the mission of what we're using our budget for and enforcing the codes. And so it is not the role of the city council to direct the work of city employees. That's the mayor's responsibility. And I think it's also really important for our city council to remember that we make sure that we treat our staff respectfully, and that in public that we praise in public but express our concerns in private. And if we had a concern, it should go to the mayor and should not be aired in public.
Thank you.
I love that we're getting different questions than the last 11 forums I think that I've been to, so that's awesome.
They weren't all here. Let's see. Do you believe it is to the betterment of the community to run candidates as a voting bloc? Please explain.
So I thought we already asked that question in the lockstep. This is a different
Yeah,
question.
it is.
So I think I addressed that in the other question, which is me as an individual, I have the right to look at who's running for office and make a decision about in each of the races who I think is the best person for that position. And I think that citizens have looked at the people that are running and have said, here are people that represent what my values are. Maybe they're representing what their vision that our city should have, and then that's who people are supporting. I think if you look at signs in people's yards, if you look at information that's going out, you can see, or if you get on some of the Facebook pages, you can see different groups of people supporting different groups of people who are running for office. And I think that's something that's naturally going to happen in an election season. When I get my ballot, I'm going to sit down with my ballot and I'm individually going to vote race by race who I think is going to be doing the best job for that position. And I think that's what each and every one of you will do. I support a group of people, and when I talk to people, sometimes they'll say, you know what, Lisa, I'll take your sign, but I know you support that person, but I don't want that person's sign in my yard. And that's okay, because you are an informed voter, and you're gonna make a choice, race by race, that who you want to have serve in each position. And because that's what we do, we vote. And we're all lucky to live in a place where we have the right to vote.
Thank you.
We have indeed answered a portion of this question, but I would like to add another piece because it's come up during this election. When I ran for mayor the last time, I made it clearly obvious that I was not supporting any candidate that was running for council. And the reason for that was, had I have been elected mayor, I was going to have to work with whoever was elected to the council. And it was very important for me that I have that respectful position with those people. And the reason it was so important was because the previous mayor actually did come out with what she called her dream team. She had picked the candidates that she wanted because she felt those were the most important ones. Those were the ones she wanted to work with. And when she did that, I thought that was really a foolish thing to do, because she would have had then people who, if they were elected and she had not supported them, what a miserable way to start out running a city. So it's far better for everyone to remain independent. Yes, we agree, some people are friends together, we share different thoughts, and some of you may have noticed that the last of our signs that have gone up, my husband puts out our campaign signs, and he made sure that he put ours a distance away from everyone else's. Susan's just running for Susan by herself. I am running for seat 3, a seat that was vacated. I'm not running against anybody, and I'm not running with anyone. I'm not hoping that anybody else is going to help me get elected. I'm going to get elected on my own merits, and that's what I would like to see happen across the board. It is unfortunate. Some people just go ahead and put the signs next to somebody else, and someone will come along and go, oh, yeah, they must be in the group together. The only reason this came up as a block was that flyers were handed out with all the names of the candidates on them with John Martin, who is running. And so that's where it came from. It was a block of people on one flyer that was being handed out. Today, we don't know who that person was that created the flyer, or who put it out there, but that's how the conversation got started, certainly as far as I know. Thank you. We should be done by 11 o'clock. When you're all gone, we can stop answering the questions.
The current mayor recently suggested foregoing a separate urgent care and utilizing the fire department paramedics and EMT. What is your understanding of what is seen at an urgent care? And would that be comparable? That would be you.
I heard the comment that John Martin made. I believe it was at the last campaign forum. I was surprised because we have all been having this conversation about a need for additional health care in Ocean Shores, whatever that is, whether it's urgent care or a family nurse practitioner, whatever it happens to be. And it was surprising. What I can tell you about my own perspective is that I do believe that we still have the ability and should, at some point, encourage our fire department to train, it's a cross-training, to train in paramedicine, which is where they actually take on a role that a nurse practitioner would do. And so we would have additional coverage, but they have to go through training. We have to have a full contingent of fire department and medical people, EMS, paramedics, before we can actually ask them to go off and get cross-trained. It is something I believe in, and I hope that we look forward to doing that in the future. And urgent care would be a wonderful thing to have, and I think will be utilized during the holidays, particularly on 4th of July. But again, would an urgent care actually financially be viable in Ocean Shores? Would we all use it during the winter? Would we have a need for it? This conversation needs to be had on a broader level. I've been having these conversations for years. I brought the state legislators in here. We've had health forums. We've discussed it. Our bigger issue with healthcare is not whether or not we get an urgent care. It's whether or not we can save our hospital. Because if we don't have a hospital, that puts another twist on the issues we have. Healthcare in America is broken, and it needs to be fixed. We don't have healthcare workers. How can we look at getting something here in Ocean Shores when we can't even fully staff our hospital? So as citizens, we need to be on top of it. We need to be having the conversation. It should be ongoing, just like the condition of our water. This should be a continuing conversation. But to say that we don't need an urgent care because we have the fire department is a little bit out there. Our fire department, our paramedics have enough on their plate without being told that they can also be in urgent care. So I hope that they took that with a grain of salt, that perhaps that comment was made without truly thinking it through. I'd like to think that was the case. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to have to read it.
The current mayor recently suggested foregoing a separate urgent care and utilizing the fire department, paramedics, and EMTs. What is your understanding of what that is seen at the urgent care, and is that going to be equal?
What a great question. And I think I'm going to start with going back to one of my values that I was raised, which is being an independent thinker. And so even though I support John Martin for mayor, this would be one of the examples where I would say I'm not lockstep with the mayor. I don't agree with that statement. I think healthcare is a super important issue for all of us that are living here in Ocean Shores. We'd like to be able to live here as long as we possibly can. And it saddens me when I see new people moving into my neighborhood or across town, and then they're only here for a short time and they leave. And when I ask them why they're going, it's because they're moving closer to somewhere for healthcare. And I think we'd like to be able to live in this community for as long as we can. I don't think it's an issue that the city can solve on its own. I don't think we'd be able to build a building and staff, build our own healthcare facility and staff our own healthcare facility. I think it's something that we need, though, as a city to be part of that conversation, that we should be forming groups of people to talk together to solve this problem. And it would include, I think we have at least 2 groups of people here in our community that are trying to solve this problem, working on their own, and they shouldn't have to be working on their own in it. That group should combine. Our city should have a seat at the table. It's just not an issue here for just us in Ocean Shores. It's up and down the beach here, including the other communities, the Quinault Nation, Seabrook, and try to get a solution. I know it's hard to attract physicians and healthcare workers to Aberdeen, but who wouldn't want to live in Ocean Shores, right? I think we could work on this issue together and market our community to be a place that could attract healthcare workers.
Thank you.
Oh, now I'm sticking my hand. Okay, here we go.
Thank you. What can be done or offered to entice new businesses to open in Ocean Shores?
So I think we're super fortunate that we have had some new businesses open recently. So I know that there is support for new businesses here, but I think that we can do better. Our businesses are an important part of the services that we provide to people that live in our community, because the taxes that our businesses are generating go into our city budget and help support all of our programs. So we need to be able to support our businesses, not just to come in, but to stay and to thrive. And some of the ways that we can do that are to market our city better. I mean, we market our city, but I think we could do a better job of marketing our city as a place not just to live and not just a place to come and stay, but a place that you could set up a business. And businesses are about making money, not just set up a business, but actually have a thriving business that you can make a living out of. I think if we focus on improving the downtown core, whether it's through improving the infrastructure, the sidewalks, and some standards for how our downtown core should look. I think making sure that we continue to focus on our convention center and those activities which bring people into our city that spend money in our businesses, and also supporting our hotels here in town. We've got some amazing hotels that have done a great job of upkeep and promoting their hotels. And not only are those hotels promoting their hotel, when they promote the hotel, they're bringing people into our city to spend money. And so supporting our current thriving hotels and supporting the ones that need to make improvements, and so that we can attract more visitors. I think we're doing a good job, but I think we can do a better job.
Okay.
I won't reiterate what Lisa said. I will just actually disagree with her on one point. Finally. The convention center, when it brings in its events, doesn't always help our businesses. I've heard from many that aren't happy on those weekends because everyone goes to the convention center, and what little money they have nowadays, they spend there and then don't go downtown and go into our little businesses and spend their money there, which is unfortunate. But we do have in the works, I was at the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting yesterday, and it was approved that we now have a group who is working on a marketing plan which will make a huge difference. It's absolutely something that we would have to do to let people know that we're here, and it is a community that thrives on business. We could also have a city financial portfolio, which we have never done, and something that I asked for when we first heard about the federal opportunity zones, which was a way to get people to come in and take some of our dilapidated buildings, buy them and bring them up to standard, and then perhaps have affordable housing. That was how that first came about. And I suggested that the city have a financial portfolio so that people could look and see what was going on. We didn't and we don't, and that would be something I think we need to do. I believe we need to look at, and this is not a council issue, but a lot of people have been saying in the community, and we've been having the discussion, a chamber of commerce, a local chamber of commerce, is what businesses really need to thrive. When I first came to Ocean Shores, we had a chamber that was viable. I went to the meetings, to the mixers that they had. They were well attended. We went to different businesses. They showcased their business. Citizens were brought in, not brought in, they were allowed to participate in these events, so people knew what the stores were all about, what they sold. Actually, one of the ones that was the best was the grooming place, Give Me Paws. And people came in and they said, wow, we didn't even know what Give Me Paws was. Oh, you do grooming. And so her business increased tremendously after she did this mixer. Those are very important. There is the Greater Grays Harbor Chamber. It is costly to join, and not very many of our businesses have joined it because they don't see the benefit. What do they get all the way out here? There's ribbon cuttings, but that doesn't involve the citizens. The local Chamber of Commerce, if we can bring one back, if we can get it out here, I think would give the businesses something to bring themselves together, to help them thrive. And I believe that for new businesses coming in, they would go to the Chamber and get their questions answered if this was indeed the right place to come and set up a business. I think it's something that we need to encourage to be done. I know there's history of what happened to the last one, but that's history. We're moving on. This is a different time. We would have different people. Thank you. I get passionate and then I get shut down.
I'm on a schedule. When we moved here from California a few years ago, we were surprised to find we still have to purchase bottled water. Can our drinking, cooking water supply be made so we can actually drink and cook with our tap water? I won't even give it to our animals.
I don't know about you, Lisa, but I think we've answered that. What do you think? Okay.
We're passing on that question.
You are. I was going to pick the next question, but that won't work.
It can. You can answer them too. Here, I'll pick one for you, Gina.
Funding for the library appears to be a popular topic this election cycle, so let's clear the air by starting off with this question. Please state your position on the funding for the library. Yes or no, do you support funding from a source other than the city's general fund? And if you want to say anything beyond yes or no, please add your comments.
Yes or no? Oh, I have
To the funding, it's your,
Oh.
the ball's in your court.
Thank you. Thank you. Funding for the library. Interesting conversation. So when the municipal bond failed, there was also some questions that, what if the library went back out to a levy? Would it pass or would it fail? Because the taxpayers obviously didn't want to have anything put on their property taxes. And I found the conversation most interesting because what I found was that everyone that I spoke to, and you know that I speak to a lot of people, all said, the library is the most important place we have in Ocean Shores, except for the fire department and the police department. Right? You get my drift. It's important. It's become a community center. It's a hub. We don't have a cultural center. We really don't have a community center in the sense of one place where we go, where we all go and meet with each other. When the library was put into the general fund, it was done in a very strange way. And it wasn't, the public wasn't included in the conversation. So as we look at all of these things that have to be funded, whether they're funded by levy, whether they're funded out of the general fund, and bear in mind, if they're funded through levy, they're still funded through the general fund. It's where the money goes so that the checks can be written. It still needs to have a conversation where the people are included. So let's say it comes to, I'm not sure what the library costs right now, $500,000 a year, something like that. I don't know if anybody's nodding their head. What if there was something else we needed to fund? and we could not fund the library, what would we do? Fund the library or not? Well, people on the council would have to hear that from everybody, wouldn't we? We'd need to know from you, what are we doing? Right now, we're not putting a library back to a levy. We're not having a new police station on any kind of a municipal bond. We're not doing any of that. The conversation about the library is an interesting one. If we put it out to a levy, would you all vote for it? I believe you would. I don't think there's any difference between how it gets funded. You just want it funded, and you want it to be there. It needs to be protected however it's funded. So this conversation is a very interesting one, but one that I don't think is necessary to have. We all love the library. We're going to fund it one way or the other.
Thank you.
So I think I mentioned perhaps at the beginning that at one point when I volunteered here in Ocean Shores, I was on the library board, and that was my first introduction to the library here at Ocean Shores. And could you just raise your hand if you've been to the Ocean Shores Public Library, so I can just see. So, I mean, look how many people have been there. It is that place in our community that is open to all, from whether you're a baby or whether you're as old as my husband, Doug, right? It doesn't matter how old you are, that you are welcome there, and there's no barrier to access. It is serving the need for our teens, because there is not a library at the junior, senior high, and it has teen activities. It has they bring in speakers. I mean, it really is, as Susan said, a community hub. And through the years, we've seen the funding for it increase. I was on the library board when it had to go out to levy, and it was a pretty tough, because we had to campaign for it, put up signs, go talk to people. And so having it in the city budget is that certainty that it's going to continue and be there for everybody. It serves a super, super important piece, including, I would say, technology. So as libraries change, it's not just about books. It's about opening access to other things through technology, and has that internet. The internet's on 24 hours a day. I always see when I drive past the library, people parked outside the library, a lot of times campers or people that are visiting for the weekend, accessing the free internet. I see people going in and using the computers. I anticipate soon that I'll probably have to book a techie and go in and have somebody that's they probably have 5-year-olds that are helping people with their technology there. So it's just an important part of our community. I believe it should stay in the city budget, and that it should be a priority.
Thank you. Since you both have been on council, what have you done to educate yourself, like municipal trainings? What have you done since you were first elected?
I think that's my question. I drew it.
It is.
So I've taken the required ones that we are required to do as part of being on the city council. There's tons and tons of classes that are offered that you can take. I have not taken those. I've taken the minimum required ones. And I have found through my years, again, as a public educator, that it doesn't matter how many classes that you take. I've worked with people that have taken lots and lots of classes, and they still are not effective educators with children. So a lot of times it's not about the classes that you take, it's about the skills that you have and having a heart for the work. So I believe that I can be an effective city council member by taking the minimum amount of classes. The classes I do take, I do lots of professional development, but it's more towards keeping my educational certificate. So learning all the time, but mainly learning about working with people and children, which I think translates into being an effective city council member.
Thank you.
So unlike Lisa, when I was elected to the city council, that was really my job. It was my career. And I had hoped when I was elected that I would continue and stay on the council. That's why I'm running again. But because I saw it as a career, and because I had never been a member of municipal government, I did take advantage of all of the classes. The Association of Washington Cities provides an innumerable amount of classes. Some are free, some of them are paid. We have a budget. There used to be a budget, a couple of $1,000s for each council member to pay for trainings. I did all of that. I got my Municipal Leadership Award. I got my Advanced Municipal Leadership Award because I felt it was important to be able to show my constituents that this job was very important to me and I would be the best that I could be. I also took the Grays Harbor leadership course as well. I also tell people that if you're interested in running for city council, you don't have to have the experience to run because you're going to learn it when you get there. We need the passion of the people that care to run for election. But once you're there, you need to have a working knowledge of how it happens. I'd been an elected official before. I did 4 years for a fire district, but it didn't translate to being a council member. I needed to understand the process. And these council trainings that you have they're very interesting. You learn a lot, and it gives you the ability to ask the questions of your own administration. So that as I did the budgeting classes, I was able to then be educated enough to be able to ask the question of our finance director, because there was a lot that I did not know. And I am very grateful that I had that opportunity. I'm grateful to the taxpayer that you allowed us to have that funding in the budget so that I could become more adept at being able to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't like that one. That's the one.
Put rubber cement on some of these. How important are your constituents' input?
The only reason that I sat on the council before and the only reason that I will sit on it again is because you all believe in me enough to vote me into office. What I think and what I do isn't relevant unless I am serving you and I am listening to all of you and hoping that from all of that, I can bring that forward to the council in my conversation, and my other council colleagues will hear that input as well, realizing that some are not able to spend as much time as I do. I can therefore share that. This is not, and you've heard it in every campaign, particularly from the new people who've come up, this is not about me, it's all about you. I can vote for myself, but one vote won't get me anywhere. This is all about you. We represent you. It's your money that we are spending. And sometimes, certainly since the time I've been off the council and have been with you out there, we've questioned, hey, you guys up there on the dais, you're spending our money. You need to listen to us. I know what that's like. I've been on both sides. Being back on the council, you'll be absolutely guaranteed that the decisions that I make are going to be based off what it is that you have shared with me, what is good for everyone, not just a certain group. And that's the difficulty that sometimes we have as a council. Because sometimes a group can be very loud, and they can come forward and they can just be absolutely adamant that this is what they want. They'll bring a petition. But there's another side to that, and we need to hear that as well. Some of the best things that I've done have been moderating some of the town halls where there's been an issue. You guys remember the church issue that came up? My goodness, that was something on both sides of the equation. These people owned the property, they thought they could do this with it, and the constituents said absolutely not. But we need to have that available to the council. If you don't speak to us, if you don't share what it is that's passionate to you, what it is that you want, we can't do the job to the best of our ability. And that's why I would say I will keep my community voices going every week. You can come every Wednesday from 1 to 2:30, come and talk to me and tell me what it is that's on your mind and offer solutions. That's very important as well. We need to hear if there are issues, but tell us how we can fix it. Thank you.
How important are your constituents' input?
So I guess to me, it's bigger than constituents. The role of the city council is to move our city forward. And our city is bigger than just those of us that live here. When we make decisions on council, we have to take the input from the people that live here, the people who own property here and maybe just visit here, from our tourists, from our businesses. So constituents for me means people that live here and vote here. It's bigger than that. That's an important part of the input that we take, but it's not the only input we take. And so we have to be able to, as Susan said, listen, but take in all of that information that impacts all of us, whether we live, work, or play here, and our city people that work here as well, and make a decision that's best for the entire city. When we make a decision that's only best for just one part, whether it's just best for people that live here, or it's only best for the businesses, or it's only best for the tourists, when we do that, then that's not a sustainable decision. We're a community, it all works together, and we have to make decisions that's best for everyone. And sometimes those decisions can be unpopular. I can give an example, and I know Susan can too, because she was on our city council for 4 years, that sometimes we make decisions that maybe the public comment that comes is all like it all expresses one way, but because of the other input, we make a decision that isn't the same as what the public comment was, and those are tough decisions, but that's the role of being on the city council, is sometimes we have to make those tough decisions that may be an unpopular decision. Those aren't fun, but we have to do what's best for everybody.
Thank you.
I found that I talk with my hands a lot, so.
Condition there is. Condition of the city streets. Ocean Shores property owners were assessed over $30 million to completely rebuild all roads in the city through 2007 Local Improvement District, or a LID, bond. Many are still paying off their assessments. It's now 15 years later, and many citizens are concerned about the condition of our roads in terms of scalloping, broken edges, sinking caused by subgrade problems, and sinking of the roadway in prior repair locations. Do you think the city is adequately maintaining our roads? What additional resources would you suggest to maintain them?
So when my husband and I first moved here, we lived in a condominium, and then we purchased a piece of property that initially I thought, wow, we're getting such a great deal, and then I found out we owed the lid on the whole thing. So I know the pain of paying off that lid. So how many of you were here when you were initially assessed with the lid for the streets? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think Susan too was on our council when we finally had made that turn budget-wise, where we had started to save money, we had started to pay off our debt, and we were able to finally focus on maintaining our streets again. So on council, we did a couple of things, and one was we made the transportation district so that started to save had money coming in that we could spend on our streets. We actually got a designated fund in our budget that was for street repair. That was new, and started putting money into that. So I believe our city is doing a better job than when I originally moved here 10 years ago full-time to maintain the streets, but again, we can always do better. And I think currently we have a plan for like what the list of the issues are, whether it's the bridges and which streets. We have a plan that we revisit once a year about what we're going to be putting our priorities on, and we also assess the condition of all the streets. That's done where they go through, they drive all the streets and find the critical areas that need to be repaired and do that as well. So we're doing a better job than when I first moved here 10 years ago, but better than that, but we could still do better.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Okay.
When Lisa and I were on the council, and then after I was on there and she had finished, and the council now has done a much better job making sure that there is money for maintenance of our roads, and for that I'm grateful. One of the problems we have is that we can't stop the land from sinking and the logs that are still there from being there. So we still do have issues that we have to address. that it is being taken care of, it is on the books. One thing I can tell you that I am going to push for, whether I get elected or not, is I want every single one of these roads striped all the time, not 1/3 of the city, and then 1/3 the next year, and 1/3 the next year. As a person getting a little older, my eyesight is not so good. When it's raining and it's dark, I cannot see the side of the road, and that is incredibly dangerous, whether it's got potholes or not. I need to be able to see where the roadway is. Now, when I brought this up to our Public Works Director, as soon as I was on the council, he said, you just have to look at the middle of the road because you've got the box dots, and that will keep you going. Well, the problem with that is then I tend to swerve closer to the middle of the road. We don't need to be doing that as a habit. We just need to stripe them. So that is one of my little pet peeves. I've been working on it for a long time, and I can guarantee you that I will continue to do it. Again, it doesn't fix the potholes, but I do believe that we are on a better course of action than we were years ago, and it has to do with all of you because you continually remind the council that that is something that they need to stay on top of. Our infrastructure is incredibly important. We all live here, we all experience it all day, every day. We want to be sure that those are the needs that are met first of all before anything else. So I can tell you that even though you may not hear people speaking at council, council also does take email, public comment, and that comes in all the time. So the council and the mayor are very well aware of road maintenance issues. It's not going to be forgotten again. I think we're on a good road here.
Thank you. Do you believe ethics complaints against city council members or the mayor should be held in public or behind closed doors, as currently happens here? And why? And what would you say about refiguring the Ethics Complaint Review Committee with comprised of citizens and electives?
When we revised the ethics guidelines, I believe it was Steve Ensley, John Martin, and myself who did that. And one of the things I wanted in that was I wanted it not only for the council members, but I thought the mayor should have been included in that as well. But I was voted down 2-1, and the mayor was not included. I still believe that that should be the case. I think all electeds should have an ethics coverage, if you will. We do allow, if a person has an ethics complaint filed against them, they can speak in public, and I think they should be allowed to do that. It has become an issue because you see that, or the public sees, that some people may be aligned with each other. So if there's an ethics complaint, how can they be impartial if they are a colleague on the council? And I think it does cause an issue. I have not looked into whether or not there are other cities that have ethics committees that are made up of citizens. If we did go down that road, what I would suggest is that there be a list. So let's say all of you in this room would like to be on that. Then the first ethics complaint comes in, 3 people on the list, they're the ones. The next ethics complaint, it's the next 3. It's the next 3. You don't get to pick who it is. You don't get to pick which ethics complaint you would like to be on that committee. It would have to be something that was seen by all parties as being fair. And I think that's the most important part to it. We don't really get that many. I know it seems like we've had a lot recently, but we don't usually, there's not that many coming in. I think most council members realize that it's all about being respectful, and that should not be happening. During election time, it's pretty contentious, and that's when you start to see a lot of these things happening. If there's an ethics complaint that's filed by a staff member against a council, I think there should be a different set of rules that go along with that. That, I think, is a very odd thing. I've never seen that before until now, and I was quite troubled by it. I am very troubled by it, that a staff member could actually file an ethics complaint against a council member just seems odd. So that I would say we'd have to have something completely separate, and I don't know what that would be. Thank you.
I'm going to make you read it again.
Do you believe ethics complaints against city council members or the mayor should be held in public or behind closed doors as currently happens here? Why? What would you say about reconfiguring an ethics complaint review committee that would be comprised of citizens and electives?
So I think that the council is revisiting not only the council guidelines, but the ethics guidelines as well. So it's probably a good time to get that revisited. Actually, as just being in the audience at council meetings, made me very uncomfortable when ethics complaints are read out loud and the council members read their response. And I don't support that happening. And I guess that's because of my experience just working in schools and confidentiality and protecting people. It made me uncomfortable listening to the person's complaint read out loud and then having to listen to the response. And I think that actually might discourage people from making an ethics complaint if they knew that potentially it could be read out loud at a city council meeting. I think it should be dealt with confidentially, and I think people would be more willing that if they had a concern that they would make a complaint if they knew their name wasn't going to be read out loud at a council meeting and their complaint read out loud. I'm not supportive of the citizen oversight committee. I heard Susan's idea for maybe like a pool of people that you could rotate, because that was what I couldn't quite wrap my brain around, is who would these people be that would be selected, and how would we know that the people selected to be on a citizen's oversight would be non-biased or impartial? So I think the purpose of ethics guidelines are for the council to hold themselves accountable. And I think that we would have less ethics complaints if people treated people respectfully.
Thank you. We're getting close to the 8 o'clock hour.
Oh, goody.
And as much as I'd like for you to work on some more of these questions, I think we'll go with your last 3 minutes of why you should be the person to be elected and what you hope to accomplish. 3 minutes.
Do I get to go first? I got
You
to go
do.
first in the first place. Doesn't Lisa get to go first at the end?
Nope.
Okay. I tried.
I know you tried, that's all right.
My name is Susan Canary, and I'm running for seat 3. And I'm running for seat 3 because it was a vacant seat. It's the first time I've ever run where I wasn't challenging someone. This has been a far better election for me because I was not challenging someone, and I appreciate that. So I'm just going to read you what I have in my official ballot statement as my closing. I believe in transparent, open, and accountable government for the people, by the people, that spends the people's money wisely to satisfy the needs of our changing demographic, mindful of our seniors on fixed income, our businesses, and our young families. My first priority is your safety, to ensure quality essential services that include a safe environment, safe neighborhoods, safe streets, safe homes, safe drinking water. Our EMS and police provide exemplary services. They need our support to provide adequate staffing and safe facilities. Ocean Shores needs more medical services. As a recent appointee to the Washington State Council on Aging that advises the governor of the needs of seniors and disabled citizens, I will pursue this line of communication to ask for help from the legislature. People feel safe when they are respected and have access to a range of social, natural, and educational resources such as our city offers. We are proud of our beaches, our fresh waterways, our golf course, the library media center, and our cultural arts community. I will focus on safety and the common good. Together we will enjoy an inclusive and safe environment no matter where we are in life's journey. And I will say to you that when I was asked why I ran, I would like very much to be on a council with Frank Elduin as mayor, because I believe that that change in leadership will make all the difference to Ocean Shores. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm interested in how many people have been to every single forum, the 6 offered by the Friends of the Library and the 6 that the Voices here sponsored. So that's like 12. Like, really, seriously, I think you need to give yourself a hand. That's a lot of listening to candidates, and I just want to thank you for sticking that out. I want you to think about, what do you love about Ocean Shores? What do you love about Ocean Shores? And I'm going to take a risk, because I want you to turn to somebody sitting next to you and tell them what you love about Ocean Shores. I'm going to let you talk for the first time in 2 hours. Tell someone next to you what you love about Ocean Shores.
That's helping our audio and video.
I know. Tell Rick's excited. All right. So hopefully you had a chance to share that. Okay, who would like to just share what they love about Ocean Shores, something they love about Ocean Shores? Raise your hand if you want to share what you love about Ocean Shores. Okay, way in the back, yes. Freshwater ways. Somebody else, what do you love? Just shout it out. What do you love? Kristen? Parks. Bob? Oceans. Someone way over here in the back corner. I can't see you behind the big speaker, but I know you guys love Ocean Shores. What do you love back there? And my husband. I love my husband in Ocean Shores. I love that. Well, I was going to say I love everything you love, but I don't want to have to fight you later, because you love your husband in Ocean Shores. So I love living in Ocean Shores. Love it, love it, love it. I know you do too. And if you elect me to seat 3, I'm going to make sure that this wonderful city we have stays amazing and becomes even more amazing. But I want you to think about, when you were saying what you loved about Ocean Shores, everybody here loves this town. And no matter who wins this election, whether it's Susan, whether it's me, Susan mentioned Frank, whether it's John, I hope that you realize we all have that in common. We all love where we live. And it doesn't matter who you vote for, it doesn't matter who wins. We need to be able to work together to continue to make this place a great place to live. And we have to move beyond saying, I want this person, or I want this person, or I want this idea or that idea. We need to work together and be a community. And I hope that we all continue to do that, no matter who you vote for or no matter who wins.
Thank you. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank the audience for participating. This has been a long, arduous campaign, I will tell you. I also want to thank the candidates that have participated and are willing to run. It makes a big difference to all of us, and it takes a big commitment. So I want to give you all a hand, and our candidates.
And I'd like to thank Gina. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I'd like to remind everyone, tomorrow, 12:30, the parade on Point Brown. It's the HIAC Homecoming. And come out and clap, and maybe there might be some candy in your future. And lastly, again, we are not endorsing a candidate. I hope that you have been able to get an idea of who is the best candidate for your choices. And I, again, am grateful that everybody has participated here. We have one more Wednesday night candidate forum. None of these questions will be asked, I promise. It will be 4 of the school board candidates. So a different venue. We will be here at the Lions Club at 6 to 9. And I want to also say that we are not endorsing a candidate here. That wasn't our purpose. And we are not collecting money for candidates or party. Again, thank yous to North Beach TV, to Daryl Prouse, Scott Johnston, John Reed, Rick Beveridge, Daily World, Clayton Frankie, Lions Club, Janet, the lovely timekeeper, Rick Beveridge with our audio, and I want to announce, well, let me finish this. Jeff Moyer, Gary Johnson, Jane Shattuck, Nancy Milliman, Anita, Jan Hyatt, everybody that's helped us put this together. This is not a one-man show by any means. And I would like for you to encourage you to stay and have the meet and greet afterwards. We'll be tearing down the equipment and putting tables and chairs back the way they were, but you are welcome to meet the candidates and ask them the questions that I didn't get a chance to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Nice job, Gina.
Well done.
Nice job, Susan. That was awesome. That was awesome. It was good.
It's been
We're